Gosh, I don't know if it's jet lag or what at this point, but I really feel like I have zero to say. I am so, which for those of you that know me is really rare, but I'm just blown away by what I've heard and am experiencing here. So I actually just want to put it out there that I'm super grateful to be here today. I'm learning so much from all of you, and I'm really excited. I feel like I was in Italy. It was I guess before I went to Italy, and when I was following you guys, I had a whole idea of what I was going to talk about. You know, I was going to talk about how important it is that we come together and really focus on responsibility. We have the opportunity right now to get GMOs labeled, which is the first step to getting them out the door. You know, we have the opportunity right now to doing all of these amazing things, and I was going to just, you know, give you one of those ramp up, let's do it speeches. And then I was in Italy for the Barilla Center for Food and Nutrition, their international forum, and we had panels on GMOs, we had panels on hunger, we had panels on obesity, which incidentally one of the most interesting things was how interwoven those two are. That really they are, you know, whether you have world hunger, which has about 100 million, or whether you have obesity, which has about 100 million, when we're looking at childhood, at that intersection, everybody's just dealing with the same thing, and that is that there's no nutrition going into bodies, right? So, and as a result, then we're raising people, if they even do survive from the hunger, we're raising people who have no nutrition in their bodies, which means that if they are able to grow into adulthood, they're at a lower functioning level, both physically, and we all know the implications from there. So anyway, I'm hearing all this stuff there, and I left totally depressed, right? You know, and I'm like, how can I be depressed amid meals of truffled pasta, enough espressos to keep me going for the day, wine, you know, this thing. But you do leave depressed, and one of the things that was probably the most depressing was that the whole space there, no one, never was it that America was an example. Nobody, every single time that we were brought up, America was the problem. I mean, it was embarrassing. You know, I even had to like find myself interjecting to make comments here and there, so I could be like, well, there are people in America that are kind of thinking about this, or, you know, I was so happy when at the end of the day, the final day, both Marian Nessel and Ken Cook spoke, and Ken was from the Environmental Working Group. So, and speaking of infographics and materials, if you guys aren't familiar with those, their materials are fantastic. And he showed materials, and everybody was kind of oohing and eyeing, and, you know, here's the Meat Eater's Guide, and it was one of these great moments where you're like, see, we do have something, you know, that we can contribute to, and kind of looking at that. And so I guess it all comes around for me then that coming here now, instead of giving you guys that whole speech, and especially listening to you today, you guys know that this is what's on the table right now. I think that the real question is how do we create a place again where people are not just okay to have Americans as neighbors, because right now they're not okay with that, where we aren't the source, one of the largest sources of global problems, but we're actually people that people want to invite to their parties. People want to have as a neighbor. You know, we started off as a country full of resources, and now we've just blown through all of those resources, and we need to now find a way, what resource can we give in the next generation and the next 100 years, and I really think that that will be the resources that you guys offer, which is coming together and creating solutions. And for me, in my space, I actually started off my career not as a dietitian. I worked in advertising for J. Walter Thompson. If any of you have seen Mad Men, that was my background and inspiration. Actually, it was Angela Bauer from Who's the Boss, because I thought she had the coolest job. But anyway, so I was like, okay, I'm going to go do that. And I went and did that, and my client was Kellogg's. And so I went, you know, showed up, and I'm like, oh, and you know, you're really excited out of school to have your first job. And my first meeting was, you know, about Honey Smacks and how can I advertise Honey Smacks to children. And the next thing I know, I'm in this room with lawyers, cartoonists, and some psychologists, and we're trying to figure it all out. The next meeting after that was about Raisin Bran and how can we talk about Kellogg's Raisin Bran having more energy and giving you more energy. Well, if anyone reads the label, and it stands true today, Kellogg's Raisin Bran is going to give you a lot of energy. The issue is it's going to give you all the wrong kinds of energy, right? It packs so much energy in there because everything is sugar-coated, because we're not talking about even organic sugar in that space. But the issue is, so nobody was asking the question of, just because we can get more energy, is it better energy? Should we have that energy? You know, what is in this package? And there's a study that's coming out this week, again, Environmental Working Group looked at, you know, over 100 cereals and basically turned around and came back and said, really for parents if they were looking at kids cereals, we shouldn't be eating these cereals in the morning. They are no better for you than desserts, and in fact, in many instances, you're better off eating a Twinkie or you're certainly, in my opinion, better off having the Strauss ice cream and more enjoyable. Yeah. The Strauss ice cream puts some nuts on top of it, a little chocolate sauce, and you're going to get better nutrition versus some companies that are doing it, responsibly. And we heard from Nature's Path this morning about that. And from Maria about it. But it's really interesting when we start to look at all of these issues and we start to think about, and one of the things that was so interesting to me in the advertising space was everybody hits that point where you can be part of the problem, or you are part of the problem, or you can work on the solution. And so initially I thought my solution was, I'm just going to create better advertising. I'm going to get in there. I'm 24 years old. I'm just out of school like many of you, and I'm going to get in there and make sure that they're doing things differently. But the only people in the US that I got access to at that point were, as a dietitian, I could talk to the dietitians and I could talk to the lawyers. I could never talk to the people who were developing the food. So then a bunch of weird coincidences happened, and I ended up going around the globe and researching and working again with Kellogg's and with advertising to find out how were all the other people around the globe, same company, how were all their other offices doing it. In every other office, I met with the chefs, I met with the farmers, I met with the ingredients, I met with the people who were doing the ingredients. I sat in brainstormings around, this is what moms want. They want a cereal they can feel good about, they want a cereal their kids are going to eat, they want something that's going to be, that they can purchase in terms of pricing. And people actually sat in the room and we played with different cereal grains and figured out how could we do this. And something weird in Australia was brought up about this whole glycemic index. And so I came back to the US and I had my notebook and I took it in and I'm like, we have so much opportunity, all this stuff. And the lawyer said, yeah, that glycemic index thing was 1996. Glycemic index, no, that's like something created in Australia. That doesn't stand up. There's no science to support it. It's a bunch of yahoos. What are we even talking about? Goodbye. Then the next thing was, why would we, et cetera. And then there was a nugget in there that somebody focused on, and it was, oh, that's an interesting ad campaign in England about Raisin Bran having more energy. Do you think we could do that here? And so the next thing, and I said, yeah, but we have to change your Raisin Bran. So what they're talking about there is changing the Raisin Bran, increasing the fiber through natural grains, reducing the sugar, et cetera. Yeah, no, we don't want to do that. So what we really want to do is we want to figure out a way that we can do all of that without making any change in our product. And I just I sat there and I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. And then I got moved on to the Clairol account for about that big of a time period. So I sat and I was listening to what they were saying. I had to scribe down, when you go and they interview consumers. And I had to listen to that. This woman said, and she's tears running down her face, I just thought that he would like me better if my hair was red. And that was her whole, the red color, the color that she was trying out. And I'm crying, and I want to give her a hug, and everybody else is sitting down there writing, and they're going, okay, red number 7, we're going to advertise it as he's going to like you better if your hair is this color. So all of this goes round to where I am today is just a huge mea culpa. So I did not get anywhere in advertising, but what I did learn is that you can be part of the problem or you can be part of the solution. And the solution in the food world today and in nutrition that every one of you can take home is that, first of all, there is no one right answer. Okay, so anybody that's selling you the one right answer, anyone that says everyone must eat this, this is the best, you should be doing, that's not the case. We have to keep food really with the biodiversity and the cultural diversity. But the other part about it is marketing does work. And the reason that marketing works is that that marketers out there, whether it's a Nature's Path, or whether it's a Nature Care, whether it's any of the companies here, they are listening to their consumers. So if you purchase and if you teach people and if you go out there and just try to choose and consume in the way that you believe in, then that will undo, or at least will counterbalance, the marketing that's happening by the bigger companies. And we see that all the time, and we see that success happening, and it's something that in my practice every day, before we were doing computers or anything like this, as a dietitian, I would literally sit down and write out to people, here are the different brands that you can purchase, here's what you can eat, and go that route. Today we don't have to do it because now we have computers, we have those lists, we have all that sort of thing. So I think it's really important for that whole idea to come back to, what do we take away from food and nutrition? Is it really that we need to be focusing on eating better quality, Or is it we need to be teaching people to focus on the idea or the marketing side of it, which is what are the marketing messages and how do we break through there? And I think what we're learning more and more, and what I'm seeing and what got me excited about being here as opposed to when I was super depressed in Italy, is this idea that it's really the junction of the two. And so I think what Judy said this morning when she was pointing out each one of the advertisers that's here today and talking about it is these are companies that are standing behind their food product that are not telling you what it is that you should be eating, but they're sort of connecting with you in that space, and they're coming forward and saying, we're giving you what it is you've told us that you want. And my point on it would be that those are going to be the people that you want to turn around and you want to purchase from. Those are going to be the people that you want to support. And when you're trying to figure out what it is that you want to put into your body from a health standpoint, it's just really, really simple. Food is just food, right? The only thing out there that isn't good for us is the stuff that has been marketed as something else, right? So do we eat GMOs? Do we have artificial sweeteners? I'll pick up on what Debbie was saying about science. There's science out there to tell you good about all of these things that intuitively you know your body doesn't recognize, okay? Don't pay attention to the science. Turn around and pay attention to your intuition, which is my body runs best on food, which is just what fuels our body. Avoid the other stuff, and that's going to be what has you being the healthiest, and teach other people to avoid it, because then it's not in your grocery store. If we can all just eat what works best in our bodies, then the grocery store, and I forget who it was that was making the point earlier about, she's left already, then the grocery store won't be full of, we won't even have those choices. And to borrow from, who's just speaking, the concept of, I want to put myself out of a job, absolutely. The only reason, I don't want to be here. There's no reason that we should have dietitians and that we should have nutritionists. We should just know that when we go into the grocery store, the food that's there is going to be the stuff that makes our bodies feel better. And if we can get to that point, happily I'll retire, but also all of us can sit here and we don't have to debate something that quite honestly, we shouldn't be needing to debate. We don't need to be sitting here, picking between food products and saying something could kill us or cause infertility or cause allergies versus something is going to fuel my body. So my hope for all of you is that you continue, just 100% continue what you're doing, but don't spend a lot of time in even getting involved in the marketing discussion around things that is just, it's there, it's confusing because it's illogical, it's not sensical. We don't need to be debating how much of a GMO, or does it do this, or should we wait for the science to come out on it, or is one artificial sweetener not as bad for me as another artificial sweetener? I mean, at the end of the day, no. The answers, they aren't fun. They're very, very simple. Yes, the body can have sugar. We can't have that much of it. Yes, the body can, consume certain things. I'm trying to think of, yes, we can eat meat if we want to eat meat, but we need to make sure that it's the best quality meat, and we need to be conscious of our portion size. We need to be conscious of the frequency, because we know that if we are consuming too much meat, then unfortunately we're exhausting resources, whether it's our water and other things around the country. So the term that I use for my goal in terms of nutrition and where everyone can drive towards is the idea of being a qualitarian. And I'll close with that in the definition. And I encourage everybody to try to become a qualitarian, because you can be a qualitarian no matter what your food choices are. The core of the idea of being a qualitarian is different than any other IAN that's out there in the food arena. And the primary core of it is that it requires you to have enough knowledge to actually make a choice. Because to be a qualitarian means, very simply, that you actually just make the best quality choice that's available to you at any given moment. And that's going to be different if I'm at a convenience store, or if I'm on an airplane, or if I'm lucky enough to come to a lunch here, etc. But if you're making that choice, then two things happen. Number one, you're choosing to not put the worst thing into your body. But the number two thing that happens is you're actually engaging in your food choices. You're engaging in, and you're having that conversation. It gets away from this idea of deprivation, which is at the root of all of our diet issues, but it also gets into the space of playing an active role. And every one of us here, and certainly everyone out there, needs to play a more active role in their food consumption. So I encourage everyone to be a qualitarian. And I hope that if you have any specific questions about food and nutrition, we can talk about them afterwards. So thank you.